When I pulled into the driveway of my mother's house after 3 long years, I expected awkwardness. I expected cold stares. But I didn't expect my sister to open the door, look directly at me, and say, without a hint of hesitation, "No one wants you here." The words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because this was the house I grew up in. Maybe because this was the same sister, Emily, who I once defended from bullies. Or maybe because I always believed, even after everything, they'd soften with time. But no, my mom appeared behind her, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, as if she was examining a stranger. Not her child, not the person who had spent his whole 20s helping her pay bills. Just someone she tolerated because I had announced I was coming. She didn't even say hello. She simply nodded at my sister's words. That nod was worse than anything Emily had said. I swallowed hard and forced a smile. I came for a visit. Just a weekend. You both agreed. Things changed, Emily snapped. We don't need your energy here. She said, your energy, like I carried disease. My mom stepped forward. It's best if you leave. We're rebuilding our peace. You bring too much conflict. Conflict. Right. That's what they always called it. Not their manipulation. Not the years they used me as a second parent to Emily. Not the endless chores, the bills forced onto me, the emotional dumping. No, I was the conflict. Mom, I whispered. I drove 4 hours. You can drive 4 back, she replied coldly. Emily leaned one shoulder on the doorframe and smirked. No one wants you here. I already said that. It wasn't the words. It was the satisfaction on her face. The pleasure of saying it. The way Mom silently supported her, just like always. The golden child and the mother who pretended fairness but lived in favoritism. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said, even though my chest felt like it was cracking open. I'll go. Emily slammed the door as soon as I stepped off the porch. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the wood grain like it held answers. Then I walked back to my old, battered car, sat down, and breathed through the ache that settled in my ribs. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. God, it hurt, but because if there was one thing I learned from them, it was how to swallow pain until it became part of me. As I drove away, I made a promise to myself. I was done begging for love. I was done forcing myself into places where I was unwanted. I was done being the family's emotional dumping ground, unpaid helper, and permanent scapegoat. If they wanted me gone, then fine. I would disappear from their world completely. I didn't know it then, but that choice would change everything. Because that weekend marked the beginning of the biggest transformation of my life. For the first time ever, I put myself first. I moved to a new city. Took a job I actually wanted instead of the one Mom guilted me into keeping. I worked long hours, studied at night, and took online courses in financial analysis, real estate, and digital marketing. I had always been smart. My mom said that was my only good trait, but now I was finally using it for myself. Months passed, then a year, then 2, and life, for the first time, felt like it belonged to me. It wasn't easy. I ate ramen. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I had weeks where I couldn't afford gas and walked miles in freezing weather. But I never once asked my family for help, and they never offered. By year 3, things started to shift. I created a small online consulting service that grew faster than I expected. I partnered with a real estate investor who loved my financial skills. I built connections, gained clients, and eventually launched a business of my own. And then one day, everything changed again. The investor called with a deal that sounded insane. Risky, huge, life-changing. I said yes. 12 months later, my share of the profit was more money than my entire family had seen in a lifetime. I paid off my debts. Bought a penthouse apartment with a skyline view. Then bought a second property, because I could. My bank account hit numbers I used to see only in movies. I wasn't just doing well. I was wealthy, and I hadn't spoken to my family once. But life has a funny way of circling back. One quiet afternoon, as I sipped coffee on my balcony overlooking the city, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me hesitated. Hello, I answered. A shaky voice replied. Sweetheart, it's Mom. My stomach dropped, not out of affection, but the shock of hearing her voice after so long. She sounded older, tired, nervous. I know it's been a while, she said softly. But we need to talk. Your sister and I, we miss you. A bitter smile formed on my lips. Of course they did. I didn't say anything, so she continued, her voice cracking. Please, can you come over? Emily is going through something. And we need your help. There it was. The real reason. They didn't want me back. They wanted what I could give. Just like always. Just like before. Just like the day they shut the door in my face. But this time, I wasn't the same person. This time, I had power, and they had none. As she waited for my reply, I felt the beginning of something slow, sharp, and cold unravel inside me. Revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't chaotic. Sometimes, revenge was simply coming back with everything they denied you, and letting them realize they no longer mattered in your life. I took a deep breath. Sure, Mom, I said finally, keeping my voice calm. I'll come. But what happened next would flip their world upside down in ways they never expected. Because they taught me I was unwanted. Now they were about to learn what happens when the unwanted child becomes untouchable. I didn't leave my mother's house that day with tears, I left with fire inside me. Their words were knives, but knives can carve paths too. I promised myself that if they didn't want me then, they would one day need me, and I wouldn't come running. I went straight to my old friend Horace's place. He opened the door, shocked to see me with a bag on my shoulder, my face pale from humiliation. Bro, what happened? He asked, pulling me inside. I didn't hide anything. I told him about the dinner, the insults, my sister's cruel smirk, and my mother's quiet betrayal. He stayed silent for a long moment, then said something that changed everything. Good. Now start your life without them. They don't deserve you. For the first time in years, I felt someone genuinely stand beside me. Horace gave me a spare room in his apartment. It was small, but to me, it felt like freedom. I slept that night after crying quietly, but I woke up with determination. The next morning, I started searching for work. My degrees were real, my skills were real, just unrecognized by my own family. I applied everywhere, small companies, startups, even remote work. Within a week, I found an entry-level job in a software firm. The pay wasn't huge, but it was enough to start rebuilding myself. I worked like someone possessed. I stayed late, learned new languages, new tools, new techniques. My boss noticed. Within 6 months, I was assigned to projects most beginners only dream of. Horace kept supporting me, reminding me every day, never forget what they said, but don't let that poison you. Just fuel yourself. That became my mantra. One day, during a major project, the CEO visited our department. I didn't know he'd be there, so I presented my work just as I always did. But he kept staring at my graphs, my ideas, my solutions. The next morning, I was called into his office. My hands were shaking. He smiled and said, I want you to lead a team for a new division. My salary doubled. Within a year, it tripled. I still lived simply, but my bank account started growing like a seed watered daily. Then came the day that changed everything. Our company launched a product I helped design, and it blew up. Investors flooded in. The CEO offered me shares for my contribution. I accepted. Those shares grew into millions within a year. I became the youngest partner in the company's history. Newspapers wrote about me. Competitors wanted me. Life was giving me everything my family said I didn't deserve. But I didn't forget. I bought a luxury apartment. Then a new car. Then I started my own side business, a tech consultancy firm, which exploded because my name was already becoming known. I traveled to countries I had only seen online. I ate food I didn't know existed. But despite everything, there was a hollow spot inside me, not pain, not longing, but a memory of that dinner table where I was told I wasn't wanted. 3 years passed. Not once did my mother or sister call. Not once did they check if I was alive. I used to tell myself I didn't care. But deep down, it burned. Then one evening, as I was leaving my office, I saw an unknown number calling. I ignored it. It called again. Then again. Finally, I picked up. The weak voice on the other end froze me. Beta, it's me, my mother. My breathing changed instantly. She sounded older, tired, broken. I stayed silent. She continued, can you come home? We need to talk. My first instinct was to hang up. But curiosity won. I drove to their house. No, not my house, but the place that once pretended to be my home. The moment I walked in, the living room was filled with tension. My sister sat on the sofa, looking nervous, not arrogant like before. My mother stood near the table, wringing her hands. My sister spoke first, her voice shaky. We didn't know. We didn't know you became this. She gestured at my clothes, my watch, my entire presence. My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Beta, your sister's husband, he left. He took all the savings. She's struggling. We need help. There it was. Not apology. Not regret. not love, need. I looked at both of them, remembering the exact moment they said, "No one wants you here." Now life had turned its wheel. Now they wanted me back. I sat down calmly. "Why are you calling me now?" I asked. My sister looked away. My mother answered, "Because we are family. Family helps each other." I almost laughed. Family. If family helped each other, why didn't they help me when I had nothing? Why didn't they defend me when I was insulted? Why did they watch me walk out into the night with nowhere to go? I leaned back. 3 years, I said. 3 years, I worked day and night. Did you ever call? Did you think about me even once? For the first time ever, I saw guilt on my mother's face. She whispered, "We were wrong." I nodded slowly. "You were." My sister began crying. "Please, just help us this once." I noticed something then, her arrogance was gone. She looked desperate. Life had humbled her. And my mother looked like she finally understood something she had ignored all her life. I stood up. "I'll help," I said. Their relief was immediate, visible. But they didn't know everything. I continued, "But not the way you expect." Both of them looked confused. I added, "You wanted me gone. Now I will help you, but on my terms." Their eyes widened. My sister whispered, "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. I walked toward the door, turned back, and said, "Tomorrow, I'll come with the plan." I left them stunned and speechless. They wanted money. They wanted comfort. But I had something else in mind entirely. A plan 3 years in the making. A plan fueled by the exact words they once used to push me out. And tomorrow, everything would begin. I barely slept that night. Not because of anger, that fire had burned long ago, but because of clarity. I finally had a chance to close the chapter that had haunted me since childhood. The next morning, I dressed sharply, not to show off, but because I wanted them to see the version of me they tried to erase. I drove to their house slowly, letting every memory pass through me like scenes of an old film. My sister taking the bigger portion of food, my mother blaming me for things I never did, the silence I lived in, the loneliness they created. By the time I reached the gate, I wasn't emotional anymore. I was ready. They were waiting in the living room. My mother stood up instantly, worry written all over her face. My sister looked even worse than yesterday, eyes swollen, hair messy, hopelessness replacing every last trace of ego. I sat down, took a breath, and looked right at them. "I'll help," I said. They both exhaled in relief. Then I continued, and their relief turned into confusion. "But first, I want the truth." My mother frowned slightly. "Truth about what?" she asked. I leaned forward. "Why? Why did you treat me like I was a burden? Why did you always favor my sister? Why didn't you ever defend me? Before we talk about any plan, I want your answers." My mother looked away. My sister awkwardly wiped her tears. For the first time, she didn't interrupt or mock, she simply waited. Finally, my mother whispered, "Because I was afraid." That shocked me. Afraid. Of what? She continued slowly, "Afraid of losing control. You were different from childhood, mature, quiet, strong. Your sister depended on me, you didn't. I gave her more because she asked for more. You never asked for anything. I thought you didn't need me. I didn't realize I was pushing you away." I stared at her, speechless. She had never admitted anything like this in her entire life. My sister spoke next, her voice trembling. "I was jealous of you. You were better at everything, studying, sports, even talking to people. Mom always protected me, and I took advantage of it. I thought making you feel small would make me feel bigger. It didn't." For a moment, the room was silent. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't about money or punishment. This was acknowledgement, the one thing I had never been given. I didn't cry, but something inside me softened. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying it." My mother wiped her tears. "Now please, help us." I took a deep breath and finally shared my plan. "I'm buying a house for you." My sister gasped. My mother covered her mouth in shock. I added, "A smaller one. Manageable, clean, safe. I'll handle the paperwork." My mother stepped closer. "You'll buy us a house." I nodded. "And I'll cover 3 months of expenses until both of you settle. But after that, you stand on your own feet. No more depending on anyone." My sister whispered, "I'll try. I don't know how, but I'll try." I looked at her and saw sincerity instead of the usual attitude. For the first time, she wasn't competing, just surviving. My mother asked, "But why are you doing all this? After everything we did to you?" I looked at them calmly. "Because I'm not who you were. I'm not cruel. I'm not selfish. You threw me out, but I won't throw you away." My mother broke down and hugged me tightly, the first real hug she had given me in years. For a moment, I let her. My sister hugged me next, quietly crying against my shoulder. It didn't erase the past, but it healed something small inside me. The next week was busy. I found a decent house through a broker, renovated it, furnished it modestly but comfortably, and handled every document myself. The day they moved in, both of them cried again, thanking me like they never had before. I stood there watching them, and for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was simply done with pain. But life wasn't finished yet. A month later, I received a call from my sister. Her voice sounded lighter. "Bye, I got a job. A small one, but it's mine." I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. "I'm proud of you," I said. She cried again. My mother started taking sewing orders from home. Slowly, they were rebuilding their lives. They didn't ask me for more money. They didn't guilt trip me. They didn't cling to me. Instead, they tried. And that mattered more than anything. 3 months later, I invited them to my apartment for dinner. The moment they walked in, they stared at everything with awe: the view, the furniture, the warmth. My mother touched my arm gently. "Beta, we underestimated who you could become." My sister added softly, "Actually, we underestimated who you always were." We ate together, peacefully, for the first time since childhood. No insults. No tension. No competition. Just a small, quiet family trying to fix the broken pieces. When they left, I stood alone on the balcony, looking at the city lights stretching out endlessly. I realized something then: revenge wasn't destroying them, ignoring them, or proving them wrong. Revenge was becoming everything they said I couldn't be, and still choosing kindness over cruelty. They once said no one wanted me, but now they understood my value without me forcing them to. My life moved forward. My company grew, my business expanded, and eventually, I even started training young developers who came from broken families like mine. Helping them gave me a purpose deeper than money or success. Years later, when my mother fell sick, I was the one who took care of her. My sister visited often, always smiling, always grateful. The bitterness had faded, replaced by a quiet respect that wasn't there before. One night, my mother held my hand and whispered, "I'm proud of who you became. I'm sorry for who I was." I squeezed her hand gently. "It's okay," I said. "We all learn. I learned too. And I did learn. I learned that family can fail you, break you, and abandon you, but you decide whether their actions define you. I learned that success feels heavier when it's fueled by pain, but it also feels purer when shared with forgiveness. And I learned that sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't shutting the door forever, it's opening it again, but only after you've built a stronger version of yourself behind it." In the end, I didn't go back because they begged. I went back because I wasn't the unwanted one anymore. I was the strong one, the grown one, the successful one. And finally, the loved one.